Hi, welcome to Enjoy TV. I'm Angela.
And I'm Camille.
Today we're talking to you about overdue books. You know, what does overdue mean? How do you say that in Chinese?
Overdue is 预期. It's overdue.
Yeah, like if your book is due, right? Maybe it's due on what's today's date? 12th, December 5th. Maybe it's due on December 5th. But if you bring it back tomorrow, it will be overdue. Or another thing you could say is past due. It's past its due date. You've gone over the due date, so it's overdue.
没错，所以 due 呢，它本身是期限的意思，那 over 就是超过，所以 overdue 就是预期的意思。比如说今天是12月5号，你的书要在今天还，那如果你超过的话，就可以说 overdue，an overdue book.
Now, libraries are a very cool thing if you think about it. You know, if you think of books, they're actually the first mass technology we had.
Yeah.
What I mean by mass technology is it brought knowledge to everyone. The way that we think of the internet now, like, wow, it's so amazing, we can get so much information. The libraries are libraries were that first.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, when books first started being printed in the 1700s, before that, books were very precious and only very rich people had them or scholars. And then when they printed books, everyone could read books. And then they started collecting them in public libraries.
Yeah.
Everyone had access to books, and it blew people's minds the way that the internet makes everyone excited now.
Yeah, OK， 所以刚刚 Angela 老师就讲到呢，其实书啊，它是算是大量科技的第一个先驱，因为我们现在可以想到说网络非常的方便，那些就以前来讲呢，还是书和图书馆是大家要去寻找知识的来源啊。在一开始有书的时候，是比较有钱的人或是像学者才会有接触到书的途径。可是后来渐渐的变广大的民众，像蓝领阶级都有了。那如今呢，我们书也很广泛的取用，还有网络也是。
So I think that's the coolest thing about books and libraries. And the other thing that's cool about a book is that it's a very accessible technology. If you think about it, if you have like a DVD or the internet, you always need a machine to help you read the information so that you can see it. But a book, you just open it up, and if you can read that language, the information is right there.
Yeah， 没错。刚刚Angela 老师有说呢，那 book 它是一个非常 accessible， 就是你很容易取得，那相当的你也很容易去理解它。因为如果说是有一些其他的媒介呢，你需要透过另外一种工具，比如说网络，你需要有电脑或是手机啊，你需要有网络去查资料。可是书你只要懂那个语言的话，你就可以直接的去理解它。
So, when you go to the library, you're participating in a 300-year-old technology.
300 euro technology.
Yeah, isn't that cool?
Yeah, that's pretty cool. 所以我们现有的图书馆系统已经有300年的历史哦。That's interesting information.
Thank you. And, you know, the whole reason that libraries work is that people borrow the books and they bring them back. So, when they say you bring your books back today, you bring them back today, you can't let your books be overdue.
Exactly. 所以大家要记得去图书馆借书的时候，不要让书逾期咯。
Okay, and now we'll look at our tips and use box, which is all about overdue and how to use it. After the tips and use, we'll go straight to looking at our dialogue, and then after that, we'll be back to help you figure out what the dialogue means.
所以接下来我们就可以看 tips and use， 就是 overdue 的用法。
Tips and Use 重点解析。
大家好，我是 Camille。今天 Tips and Use 要教大家的就是预期的英文要怎么说。借书逾期可以使用 overdue， 另外像水电等账单逾期未缴纳也可以用这个单字。例如 The water bill is overdue， 水费账单逾期了。通常借书的时候，图书馆员会告诉你图书的到期日，可能会这么说 This book is due in 4 weeks. 它中文的意思就是这本书4个星期后到期。这样大家学起来了吗？那我们下次见喽，拜拜。
Tips in Use 重点解析。
今天 Tips in Use 要教大家的就是 record 的用法。本文中 at that time your record will be clear。这当中的 record 在这边当名词念成 record， 表示记录。那它还有以下重要的片语 ：set a record 就是缔造记录 ，keep the record 保持记录 ，break the record 破纪录。比如说 ，He set a new record during the race。他在赛跑中创下新纪录。那 record 也可以当作动词念成 record， 表示录音、录影。例如 ，Jack recorded the birds chirping when he was hiking in the mountains。在这句里面呢 ，birds chirping， 那个 bird 是鸟，那 chirp 就是那个鸟的叫声，所以他就是说，杰克在山里健行时录下了鸟鸣声。这样大家学起来了吗 ？record 跟 record 的用法。那我们下次见喽，拜拜。
The Dialogue 情境对话。
There seems to be a problem with the books you're returning, sir.
Really? What's the matter?
The computer is showing that they're 2 months late.
Sorry about that. I forgot I had them.
That's understandable, but I'll have to inform you that your borrowing privileges have been suspended for 15 days.
You've got to be kidding. Does that mean I can't borrow this book now?
You can if you're willing to pay the penalty fee for returning books late.
What if I refuse to pay that?
Then I'm sorry, but you'll have to come back in 15 days. At that time, your record will be cleared and your borrowing privileges restored.
The explanation 内文讲解。
So it looks like our friend Daryl got in trouble with the librarian. He wasn't very good. How can you let your books be 2 months late?
Yeah, 2 months late, it's a long time.
It's a long time, and also 2 months.
Like, come on.
How can you forget about something for 2 months?
I
You had to
know.
have known. Sorry, we'll stop yelling at Daryl and let's look at the first line of our article. Okay, so our first sentence is the introduction to the dialogue. You know that it's telling you about the dialogue because the words are in italics. Do you know what italics means
It's like kind of like
in Chinese?
斜斜的
Yeah.
like, yeah, 斜体
Yeah. It's where the words are, they're written at an angle, and that's to give you an idea that it's a different kind of meaning than if it's just the regular words. So when you find something is in italics, it's usually an instruction, or it's like the equivalent of someone is telling you a kind of secret like this. By the way, you should know this. That's when a whole sentence is in italics.
没错，就是第一句的时候，它是以斜体的方式呈现。之所以会用斜体，是因为跟平常在讲的是不一样的，可能是告诉你一个额外的 information。
So in this case, the information is what's happening before, like it's setting up the place and the situation of the dialogue. So in this case, Daryl is dropping off some books at the library. To drop something off is not literally to drop it on the ground. It means that you give it to somebody else or you leave it at a place. Like you can drop off books, you can drop off clothes at like the dry cleaner, you could drop off a movie at the rental place.
Yeah.
It's returning things, taking it back or putting it somewhere.
So Dario is dropping off some books at the library. 这边 drop off 跟 drop off 都是把什么送到某处。那 drop somebody off 就是让某人下车。For example,
Terry dropped off his dirty clothes at the dry cleaners on his way to work. In that case, he's dropping off the clothes. He's not dropping off a person.
所以泰瑞呢去上班的时候，顺便把他的脏衣服拿去干洗店。
Or the other one is drop me off at the post office. You know, in this case, you're dropping a person off.
所以这边就是在讲人了，就是在邮局那里放我下车。
So let's start with our actual dialogue. At the library, when Daryl came to bring his books to the library, he saw the librarian, and the librarian puts on her stern face and says, "There seems to be a problem with the books you're returning, sir." She calls him sir because she's being polite.
Yeah.
She also says there seems to be a problem. She knows there's a problem. She's not, she's kind of,
Yeah.
but she's
Say it
being
in a
polite.
nice
She's
way.
like, oh, there seems to be a problem, instead of being like, there's a problem. You know, it's a nicer way of saying
Yeah,
it.
yeah. 没错，这边 there seems to be a problem with that bookstore returning, sir. 这边 sir 的时候是在用尊称的讲法，因为这个 librarian 他是图书的管理员，所以他讲话自然会比较有礼貌。然后 there seems to be， 虽然他知道本来就有问题，可是他用就似乎 seems to be 好像有一些问题哦。怎么样的问题呢 ？With the books you're returning， 就是你在归还的这些书有一些问题。
And then Daryl, I don't know, do you think he's doing it for real? Because he goes, really? What's the matter? Gee, is there a problem? I can't imagine why. You
Maybe
know,
he was faking it, like, really?
Do you mean-
Oh, I didn't know.
do you think he knows that his books are late and he's just trying to pretend there's no problem?
Maybe, yeah, he could be really forgetting. Like
Oh, yeah.
that. Yeah.
Maybe he's an actual flake. Like,
Yeah.
oh, there's a problem? Didn't, you know, aren't they on time?
OK， 这边 Daryl 我们就不知道他是真的不知道还是假的不知道，他就说 Really 真的吗 ？What's the matter？ 这怎么了 ？What's the matter？ 就是 What's wrong with it？ 怎么了呢？
When you say the matter, right? The matter is the problem, right? Actually, matter is an old-fashioned way of saying problem.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it's actually a very old way of saying, is there, you know, that what is the
Yeah,
problem? What is the matter at hand? What is the matter we're discussing? What is the thing that's the problem?
所以 the matter 其实是一个比较旧式的讲法。
So after Daryl gets through pretending he doesn't know what's going on, the librarian gets right to the point. She goes, the computer is showing that they are 2 months late. So she's not being polite now. She's just very directly stating the thing. She says, right here, the computer, which is, everyone knows that computers are accurate. That's a joke because computers are programmed by people, you know, and people make mistakes.
It can be making mistakes too.
But I mean, in our minds, computers are accurate, right?
Yeah.
So she's saying the computer is showing that they're 2 months late. It's not that the computer is like, ding, ding, ding. It's not showing it like, oh, here. But she's saying that on the computer, we can read that it is 2 months late.
所以接下来这个图书馆管理员他就继续很直接的讲，他这次就没有那么有礼貌，他就说 The computer is showing that they're 2 months late。这个电脑呢是显示就 showing that they're 2 months late，就是你其实预期了2个月。
So Daryl says, oh, sorry about that. That's an informal way to make an apology. You should say, if you want to be very formal to make an apology, you should say, oh, I'm so sorry about that. You have to put yourself into the into the apology. But if you just say, oh, sorry about that, that's really
Like,
kind of casual.
Yeah,
You're like,
yeah, yeah.
oh, 小事情, you know, oh, sorry about that.
没错，刚刚 Angel 老师就有提醒我们一点，就是 when you say sorry about that， 其实你讲话比较没有那么就是正式，因为如果你要很诚心的道歉，你可以说 Oh, I'm so sorry about that。
You know, we could talk a bit about apologies. There's the right way and a wrong way to make an apology.
What is it?
Well, the kind of apology I'm talking about is when you've hurt somebody. Like maybe you've said something that made
Hurtful.
the person feel bad. But like media companies do this. Somebody in the media will say something and a group will be like, hey, that's really offensive to women or whatever.
Yeah.
And this is what they'll say. They'll say, if anyone was offended, we apologize. And that is the wrong way to do it. Do you know why?
Why?
Because they're saying, if someone was offended, we're sorry. They're not saying,
There's actually a person.
yeah, they don't admit that they offended someone. Someone has just said to you, I'm offended by what you said. And you say, oh, if you were offended, I'm sorry. What you're saying is, I don't really believe that you were offended, which is offensive. It's more hurtful. You're not admitting that you had a problem.
Yeah. 刚刚 Angela 老师就有说呢，在媒体界啊，其实常名人讲话要特别小心，他们有的时候讲的一些评论啊，可能会伤害到大众的心情，或者是得罪到他们，那可能就会有引起一阵挞伐。所以他可能会说 ，If anyone was offended, I apologize。可是其实他这样子不是真的在道歉，因为他说 If anyone was offended，就是你是在假设语气，那就等于说你没有承认你真的冒犯到任何人。
So the better way to apologize is to say, I apologize for those that I have hurt, or I apologize to those that I have hurt. And then an even better thing to say is how you're going to do better in the future.
没错，跟刚刚 Angela 老师有说，其实更好的道歉方式是说 I apologize for those that I have hurt， 就是我为那些我曾经伤害的人而道歉。那更好的是说你以后会怎么样改进。
So getting back to Daryl, he was very casual with his apology because he doesn't think it's a big deal. He's like, oh, sorry about that.
Yeah, like whatever.
Yeah, I forgot that I had them, which is a lame excuse.
Yeah, like
It doesn't matter.
2 months it's been in your house.
Yeah.
Can you forget something for 2 months?
Well, actually, I'm kind of a flake, so I can understand forgetting something for 2 months. But then I wouldn't be like, I just forgot it. And, I'd be like, oh, I'm so sorry,
Yeah. OK， 所以他就继续讲说，哦，不好意思哦 ，I forgot I had them， 就是我忘记我已经有这些书了。
So the librarian, she probably has to deal with this all the time. So she goes, that's understandable. She probably doesn't actually think it's understandable, but that's what you say in the situation to keep it going or to make everyone feel good. So she goes, that's something that could be understood. We understand that. But even though it's understandable that you forgot them, she says, I have to inform you, I have to tell you that your borrowing privileges have been suspended for 15 days. A borrowing privilege, a privilege is the right to do something or a special right to do something. So you have the privilege of borrowing books from the library. So his privilege of borrowing books have been suspended. If you suspend something, it means it's stopped. So you can be suspended from your job, you can be suspended from school. It just means that you're not allowed to do that thing for a while. So he can't take any books from the library for 15 days. And that's how they let him know that what he did was really wrong.
Yeah, OK， 所以这个 librarian 就继续说 That's understandable. Understandable 也在我们今天的 words and phrases， 它就是可以理解的。For example,
Rose's anxiety about being unemployed is understandable.
没错，就是罗西对失业感到忧心忡忡，这点是可以理解的。所以 librarian 就继续说啊 ，That's understandable， 这是可以理解的。But I had to inform you that your borrowing privileges have been suspended for 15 days. 但是呢，我很遗憾的要通知你，这边 inform 呢就是 VT 当通知跟告知。You can inform somebody that 就是告知某人某事，或者 you can inform somebody of something 就告知某人某事的意思。
So the sentence is, inform me of what has happened anytime. So please let me know what's going on.
就是随时把发生的事情告诉我。那我们继续再来看这个句子啦。But I have to inform you that your borrowing privileges have been suspended for 15 days. 这 borrowing privileges 就是借书权，那 privilege 就是荣幸跟特权的意思。你也可以说 I have the privilege of VING， 或是 have the honor of VING， 都是指从事什么事情感到很荣幸。For example,
Ladies and gentlemen, I have the privilege of making a speech to you this evening.
就是各位女士先生，我今天晚上可以对诸位发表演说，深感荣幸。那 suspend 呢，就是 VT， 使暂时禁止的意思。
For example, the construction of the road was suspended for a few days because of the typhoon.
没错，就是 construction 就是道路工程，那这边 construction of the road 就是它被禁止是因为台风，所以它终止了几天。
And now the interesting thing is that Daryl gets offended. So he's the one didn't bring the book back for 2 months, and then when they say sorry, that means you can't borrow books for 15 days, which is half a month only. He goes, "You've got to be kidding!" Which is what you say when you're really outraged about
like
something. You've got to be kidding.
没错，可是 Daryl 他虽然是自己忘记还书，可是他却理直气壮的开始生气。他说 "You got to be kidding"，就你一定是在跟我开玩笑吧。
And so then he goes, "Does that mean I can't borrow this book now?" You can just hear the outrage in his voice.
Yeah.
Does that mean I can't borrow this book now? He's being very dramatic.
Yeah，所以 Daryl 其实讲说 "Does that mean I can't borrow this book now？" 就是你这个意思是说我现在不能借这本书了吗？他就感觉很夸张这样子。
Ah, but then we have a new thing. The librarian says, "Oh yes, you can borrow this book if you're willing to pay the penalty fee. So you can give us time or you can give us money.
Yeah.
And the penalty is for returning books late."
没错，这 librarian 就是说 you can 你还是可以啊 if you're willing to pay the penalty fee for returning books late。如果你愿意 willing to be willing to 就是愿意的意思 to pay the penalty fee 就是去付这个罚款 for returning books late 就是因为你过期就是书逾期了而来付这些罚款。那我们今天的单字呢就是 penalty fee 是名词罚款的意思。For example,
Drunk drivers have to pay a huge penalty fee. And they should, because drunk driving,
yeah, it's really bad.
you're this close to murder.
It's really selfish. I really, yeah. 这句话的意思就是酒驾会有巨额罚款。那我们再来看 penalty 就是名词惩罚、处罚的意思。For example,
The penalty for murder in that country is death.
在那个国家杀人惩罚是死刑。
So the librarian told Daryl that you need to have a penalty fee, and Daryl is getting a little bit weird. He's like, "Well, what if I refuse to pay that?" He's getting obnoxious. It's
Yeah.
like, you know, you're the one at fault here, but he's like, "Well, I don't want to pay the fee on this book. What happens if I refuse?"
没错，这 Daryl 呢，在这边其实他有点赖皮啊，他就说 What if I refuse to pay that？ 那如果说我拒绝要付这个罚款呢 ？Refuse to V 就是拒绝做什么事情的意思。
For example, Charlie refused to take part in bullying the little boy. You go, Charlie. And also you tell those guys, don't bully.
I know，所以 Charlie 呢，他就拒绝加入欺负小男生的行列。
So Daryl says, "I don't want to pay the fine." And the librarian says, "Then I'm sorry, but you'll have to come back in 15 days." Now, when the librarian says, "I'm sorry," she's not really apologizing. She's just being polite again. She's like, "Well, this is the situation. I'm sorry." Not sorry, because you're being kind of a bad person.
所以这个 librarian 他就继续说 Then I'm sorry， 他就说那我就不好意思了。可是他在这边其实他没有歉意，因为他没有错，是这个 Daryl 他自己忘记还书，他又拒绝付款。其实他只是在保持礼貌的一个方式。他说 Then I'm sorry, but you have to come back in 15 days。那你可能就要在15天之后再回来一趟了。
So when you come back 15 days later, at that time, your record will be cleared. So this penalty will be lifted and your borrowing privileges restored. If something is restored, it's given back to you, or it's given back to the situation is returned to normal. For instance, if you're a king and someone has taken you out of power, you can be restored to power. That means you can be the king again or the queen.
没错，是继续来看这个句子。At that time， 就那个时候呢 ，your record will be clear， 你的这些记录都会被消除 ，and your borrowing privileges restored， 还有你的借书权呢也会恢复。那 restore 这里也是一个很好的单字，它就是恢复和修复的意思。And for example,
the government promised to restore the economy to what it once was. So the government says, yeah, the economy is bad now. We're going to bring it back to be how it was before when everyone was happy.
所以政府承诺使经济复苏到以前的景象。
But that's really that's promising a lot.
Yeah.
Because it's not really under the government's control, the economy. Anyways, getting back to our dialogue, I think it's interesting to talk about this word privilege. Privilege is usually translated as 特权, right?
特权 yes.
Yeah, and so I think in Chinese and in English, privilege is a slightly different meaning. Because privilege in English is like something you're entitled to. Like this is something that you get because of your situation or because you've done something. Yeah. And in Chinese, it seems more like a right, right?
A right? It's actually It's actually pretty much the same.
Okay.
Because it's something you have to kind of like earn it, like you're entitled to.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So there's earning
yeah.
involved in 特权 as well. Okay. So you have to earn a privilege. Oh, there's another word here that is interesting, which is record. What is your record? Do you know? She said your record will be cleared, and what she means is that there's a record of all your transactions with the library. So they record that maybe I borrowed a book in December, and then I returned it in January, and then I borrowed 2 books in February, and it just lists all the things that happened, my actions in terms of the library.
没错，这边 record 呢，它其实就是指说你在图书馆所有交书跟还书的历史记录啦，它就是用 record 来说。
So also we talk about record in terms of a larger thing than a library. We talk about police records, or we talk about like your school records. And a school record is all of your grades and all of your behavior in school. And then a police record is whether or not you've committed a crime.
Yeah.
But you know, it turns out that if you've not committed a crime, you have no police record.
好，没错，就是这边在学校也有一个 school record，就是指说你在学校的，比如说缺旷课记录啦，或是你在学校的成绩啊，各种你在学校的表现都可以叫 school record。那另外一个还有是 police record，就是你平常有没有就是犯罪，可是如果你没有任何的犯罪的话，就没有这个 police record。
So my question is, do you go to the library these days?
Yeah, I can't really remember when was the last time I went to a library because usually every information I need is pretty much
On the internet.
Yeah, on the internet.
Yeah, it's true. And so some people are saying, oh, we don't really even need libraries anymore because everything is on the internet. And the thing is, that's not true. The basic information is on the internet, but there's also a lot of misinformation on the internet. But what libraries have is a record of books, and books are different than articles because a book is like an expanded set of information.
Yeah.
So the internet may tell you that the book exists and it might tell you a summary of the information, but sometimes it's really valuable to go read the book in depth. And so we still definitely need libraries to keep all this information for us that when we want to really get into understanding a topic better.
没错，刚刚 Angela 老师就说呢，现在有些人可能会认为，就是网络就已经非常方便啦，所以其实我们不需要图书馆，因为你一上网就是很多你需要的资讯就可以找到了。可是其实啊，图书馆它还是有存在的必要，因为你一本书跟一篇文章相比之下，一本书里面含有的知识还是多，非常的多，所以我们觉得图书馆它还是有它的价值。
If you think about it, libraries are like the memory of our whole community, of our whole world.
Yeah.
So libraries are important to understand all of our history and all of everything we've done before.
所以其实你如果试想一下，其实这图书馆啊，就是我们所有做过的事情所留存下来的一个记忆。
Well, that's all we have for you today, but definitely we'll be back next time with more for you. So until then, bye-bye.
Bye, see you next time.
Words and phrases 单字片语
1. Drop off. Drop something off. Terry dropped off his dirty clothes at the dry cleaners on his way to work.
2. Understandable. Rosie's anxiety about being unemployed is understandable.
3. Inform. Inform somebody that. Inform somebody of something. Inform me of what has happened anytime.
4. Privilege. Have the privilege of. Have the honor of. Ladies and gentlemen, I have the privilege of making a speech to you this evening.
5. Suspend. Construction of the road was suspended for a few days because of the typhoon.
6. Penalty fee. Drunk drivers have to pay a huge penalty fee.
7. Restore. The government promised to restore the economy to what it once was.
The dialogue 情境对话
There seems to be a problem with the books you're returning, sir.
Really? What's the matter?
The computer is showing that they're 2 months late.
Sorry about that. I forgot I had them.
That's understandable, but I'll have to inform you that your borrowing privileges have been suspended for 15 days.
You've got to be kidding. Does that mean I can't borrow this book now?
You can if you're willing to pay the penalty fee for returning books late.
What if I refuse to pay that?
Then I'm sorry, but you'll have to come back in 15 days. At that time, your record will be cleared and your borrowing privileges restored.
Just for fun. 趣味英文
Have you ever had to return an overdue book? Most of us have. However, not many people can say they've returned a library book 33 years late. That's exactly what happened to Cynthia Gonzalez of Detroit, Michigan. Back in 1980, Cynthia was a high school student. She checked out a copy of a book called T.S. Eliot by Leonard Unger from her school library, but apparently she lost it among her things. She didn't find it again until 33 years later when she was cleaning out her place. The only problem was her place was no longer in Detroit. In fact, her new place was in Dubai, over 7,000 miles away. So Cynthia mailed the book back to her former school along with a letter. She apologized for keeping the book for so long. The people at the school library weren't angry, though. They were just happy to have their book back.